you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you've seen that I've done ribs plenty of times. I don't know how many times on video I've done them, a dozen, 2 dozen times. In life, I've done them probably hundreds of times, but I've never done them the way that my parents did them when I was growing up. Let me explain. My parents both grew up on farms, and when they had meat, my only assumption is they incinerated it. No one knew what medium rare meant. When I grew up, I didn't have any idea what medium rare meant. Everything in our house was cooked well done. Hamburgers were sometimes hockey pucks, and ribs were, well, in the opening you saw what ribs were like. So today, I'm gonna recreate those ribs of my youth. And the weird thing is, when I was young, I loved those. That's how I thought ribs were supposed to be. I thought that there was supposed to be crunch in them when you bit into them. I didn't think they were supposed to be tender. I thought they're supposed to leave little flakes of char on your teeth. But whenever my parents made ribs out on the Weber kettle, I was waiting for them because I loved those. It was only later in life when I learned that no, you don't necessarily just incinerate the ribs directly over charcoal the way my parents did. Indirect is the best way to go. Using a rub helps. Saucing at the right time helps. That's not the way my parents made ribs. Today, I'm going to show you the way they made ribs and the way I loved ribs. Our charcoal in the chimney is just about ready. It's time to get it in the kettle so we can begin this process of recreating ribs from my youth. In order to recreate that, we need a really hot fire. Looking good. Let's get our grill grate on. Let's give this a quick brush down. All right, process begins now. We've got screaming hot coals. Nothing's indirect. We've got charcoal filling the kettle, and here goes the ribs. Oh, listen to that sizzle. This just seems wrong. Okay, the way it used to work was this. My parents would put them on for about 10 minutes, covered. I'm gonna put the lid on now. In about 10 minutes, we're gonna flip them over to meat side down. Yes, you heard that right. All right, the ribs have had their first 10 minutes. Let's take this off so we can turn them. Meat side down. Those are going to go for another 10 minutes. Okay, we are 20 minutes in, and it's time to move this to the next level. We're going to turn these back over. And we're going to sauce them. This is what my parents would do. Whole bunch of barbecue sauce. Just smear it all over. I just remember loving these ribs. Recreating this is kind of cool. I know I'm making fun of it, but I loved these when I was a kid. And now, we're gonna leave the lid off for a while. Because yes, there was flame involved in this process. I just remember loving watching my dad make these ribs. It's just interesting how things change. You learn different processes and different ways to make things and how they taste much better. But there's still something about that memory of what that food tasted like when you were a kid. I look at this now and I think this can't be right. But this is the way ribs were made in my house when I was a kid. And now we turn it over. Put the sauce side down. Oh, there's that nice char I remember. Turn it around here. Got a nice char on the back side of these ribs. Definitely remember the smell of that barbecue sauce hitting the grill. 10 more minutes and we'll flip it again. And here we go, flame grilled spare ribs. Again, I know I'm making fun of this a little bit, but when I was a kid, these were some of my favorite things. I actually can't wait to taste this. Okay, it's been another 10 minutes, so this is 30 minutes total on here now. And we are going to flip it back over. That's what I remember. Char. All right, these are gonna cook for another 10 minutes. Let me flip these around a little bit actually. And these are gonna cook for another 10 minutes. All right, we are 40 minutes into this, and this is about the time that my dad would take the ribs off the barbecue. Or my mom sometimes, she would also do the grilling. And so, it's time to get these inside. Take a taste. Here are the ribs of my youth. They've got a nice char on them, I can say that. I know they're fully cooked. I actually did a little internal temperature check. They were like 195 degrees when they came off, so they're cooked. They're just not gonna have that tenderness that you're used to when it's low and slow with ribs as we normally cook them today. But I wanna dive into these and take a bite. So first, let's cut into these. I'm gonna cut this one right out of the middle here. This is gonna be my test rib. Let's give it a taste. It's time for me to take that trip down memory lane. They're a little charred. They smelled exactly the same as I remember when I was a kid. Let's see how they taste. Crunchy. Oh man. Do you see the char all over my face? They're cooked all the way through. There's almost no moisture left in them. But I remember these as the best ribs I'd ever had when I was a kid. There's almost none of the sauce flavor left. And I do remember that you would smell the sauce on the grill because it was burning. See if I can get a bite of this end here that looks a little crispy. I don't think it'll break my teeth, but it's pretty crispy. There's a little bit of that end meat. Let's see if there's any moisture in there. A little bit. So these ribs were on sale for 99 cents a pound. That's one of the reasons I decided I wanted to do this video today. Not because I expected them to be completely inedible, but I didn't know. It was a long time ago when I remember eating these as a kid. But the meat from these, we're going to use it and put it in some beans and things like that, so it's not going to go to waste. But I find it very interesting that this is the way a lot of people used to cook out on the grill. Now, my parents weren't alone in this. In our neighborhood, just about everybody barbecued. And just about everybody had a similar method of cooking things. You know, you throw it on over a pile of briquettes that are just flaming hot, and you cook it until it's black, until it's charred. That's how a lot of people cooked, you know, back in the 1960s and 70s. I think when the idea of smoking and cooking low and slow and more indirect cooking started to spread from people who actually knew what they were doing, that's when we started to get, you know, better ribs from backyard barbecues because they got the idea of it. My parents were never into that. You know, it was a quick Sunday meal. Go out there, throw it on there, and 40, 45 minutes later, you have ribs. It's not 6 or 7 hours like we would take now in an offset smoker or cooking indirect on the grill. So I do find it interesting how times have changed and how things have gotten better in many respects in the way we prepare things like ribs. But it's fun to look back because those memories were just awesome. I mean, I'm not kidding when I said I loved these ribs when I was a kid. There was just something about biting into crunchy ribs. And so that's why I wanted to make this video, to have a little fun with it, but also to remember and to show you, you know, this really isn't the way you should prepare ribs now. They're cooked all the way through. You can safely eat them, but you don't get the flavor that you would normally get by using a rub and by cooking lower and slower, you know, saucing, potentially wrapping and doing a 3-2-1 method or anything like that. You can get much better results using methods that have spread from the professionals to backyard cooks everywhere. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to check out some of my other videos and consider subscribing. And if you do, click that bell for notifications. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you again soon.